Welcome everybody to the mainstream indie music channel. We talk about all things indie music, and this video is had to just come out on this channel. We had to do it. If you don't know what the stomp clap era music is, please research it on YouTube right now. There is an awesome YouTube video by Kyle Gordon. I believe it's called We Will Never Die or something like that. And of course, it's a parody on the style of music that we're going to be talking about today. I have watched so many YouTube videos dissecting this era of music. And why I wanted to comment on it specifically is because I wasn't just raised in that time. I was in my 20s at this period of time when this music came out. If anything, these songs were written and directed to me and my friends at the time. And so why I wanted to comment on it is I'm not trying to knock anybody who's a generation below me or younger that's making videos on this style of music, but I see a lot of the youngins, talking about it, and I loved them. Don't get me wrong. All the videos that ripped on this era of music, I absolutely loved it. I was laughing so hard during all those videos. But that's why I wanted to make it, because I wanted to tell it from the millennial perspective. I don't even honestly know what generation I am. I think I'm a millennial, but anyway, I wanted to talk about how the history of it, why that music came even to be in the first place. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about its impact on the music scene. So before we begin, we need to rewind, not even to the 2010s. We need to go all the way back in history, because my brother and I were talking about this video that came out, and then subsequently the many videos since of the stomp, clap, hey era of music. And what really, my brother brought out a really interesting point. And he said throughout the entire history of modern day music, so we're going to like maybe the early 1900s and going forward, there's always been some kind of movement of the stomp, clap, hey era type of music. And some examples to give, maybe even the biggest example to give, is disco in the 70s. Why? It's because disco came about partly because people kind of got sick of just listening to the psychedelic rock and roll music of the day. And people's lives, now kind of moving into the late 70s, into the 80s, were starting to speed up in pace. People weren't really into just kind of the whole sit down, listen to an entire record album for an entire afternoon and evening and do nothing else. They wanted to go out and experience the modern age. They wanted to go to clubs, to go to parties, and disco was the channel that was used to make that happen. And so what happened? Well, of course, as we know, disco quickly faded out and died, and now it became a meme in the music, stratosphere. Right? We always kind of point back to it. It's kind of like a punching bag of musical jokes, right? But disco is not the only thing that happened. How did even punk music get its start? Again, around the same time period, kind of the yin and yang to disco. People got tired of hearing these happy kind of campy songs all the time. They wanted to rebel. And so punk music was created. Now, I hesitate to kind of put punk music, though, in kind of like this meme genre, but it's kind of the same thing, because punk definitely comes and goes in waves. So that's just kind of a smaller example, but a second kind of more stronger example of what I'm talking about is the ska era during the 90s. The second wave of ska was kind of the same thing. Grunge music was dominating, hip-hop music was starting to dominate the scene, rap music, and people yearned for something different. And so what did they do? Well, they started to listen to ska music once again. It was different, it was lighthearted, it was kind of like an easy way to chill and relax, and it caught fire. But what happened to ska music in the 90s? Well, eventually Near the end of the 90s, it lost momentum and it faded away. Hopefully it comes back though. It's definitely still around there. But that leads me to one of the first main talking points that these Stomp Clap Hey era music videos get to is there's always, well, no, I shouldn't say there's always. Sometimes there is a hole in the music scene that people are looking to get filled, to get covered. I don't know why it happens. Maybe it happens for the aforementioned reasons. People kind of just get tired of the same old, and they crave something different. In a moment, I'm going to get into kind of the history of why I personally, from personal experience, think this whole Stomp Clap Hey era music came out. So sometimes it's a reaction to something, so it fills the need of the public, and people kind of catch wind of it, and then once that need is met, they're kind of done with it. And so I currently think in the current music landscape of 2025, there's a hole forming in music. People are kind of getting tired of the hip hop kind of driven style of music that's been around probably for the last like 10 years now. And I think people are kind of getting ready to experience something different. So I think it is coming, another kind of different wave of music. But let's move on to the next topic now. Like I said, the time. So we talked about the history of holes in music, you could say, and now the time period of the Stomp Clap era music. I definitely agree with the points that people make here. It was coming right off of the recession in the United States, right? 2008, 2009, 2010. It affected people in the United States especially very, very hard. Very, made a lasting impact on people financially, kind of made the whole idea of like what college does, what buying a house does. People started to question it almost for the very first time, right? And in the late 2000s, there was a change and shift in pop music overall, where what was introduced was people liked fast, kind of party-driven songs. And think of people like Lady Gaga, Katy Perry, the Black Eyed Peas, Justin Bieber, so on and so forth. Hip-hop music was starting to introduce kind of like electronic music in their songs because people were going to the club and the party, once again, like they did during the disco days, to escape the problems, the financial problems that they were experiencing. And so once that started to fade just a little bit, because it definitely didn't go away, but once it started to fade a little bit, it was almost like a breath of fresh air that people kind of thought to themselves, you know what? We got through it. We endured through this. And then for people like myself, and now in our 20s, we didn't fully experience the gravity of that recession. We did a little bit, like definitely our parents probably brought the brunt of that recession, but we weren't owning houses yet, or we were just getting into college. So we faced it a little bit, but we also were living in a very interesting time period. And that time period was one of a lot of optimism. We were ourselves partying it up in the club. We were starting to go out from and leave and this is kind of speaking from personal experience. We were leaving home for the first time. We were experiencing the world for the first time. Air travel, I know it sounds kind of silly, but travel overall was cheaper. The world was kind of more open to exploring than maybe in the past compared to like our parents' generation, maybe even the generation before us. For the first time, we wanted to go out and experience things. Social media was in its infancy. It wasn't as dominant as it was nowadays. So if anything, when we would post things online, it was common to just kind of see day-to-day pictures. Like you and your friends just hanging out, you take a few random photos of the group of, people together. The camera quality was so poor, it was so bad, but like, you posted it anyway because it was just fun to do it. You didn't have the gravity that and the social pressure that people, and especially people now, like in their late teens, early 20s, have nowadays, almost competitive like in nature with social media. We didn't have that. And I just know for myself, I was living in New York at the time in my early 20s. It literally just felt like the world was your oyster. You could go out, you could travel, like I said, you could hang out with friends. Yes, there were bad things in the world, don't get me wrong, there were. But there was just a lot more optimism. I feel so bad. And this is kind of why I empathize with the young ones that are making these videos on the Stomp Clap era of music. And there was one video in particular, I wish I would have wrote down which video it was, but it was of a young gentleman, probably in his early 20s. And there was a brief moment in his video that he even kind of stopped and was like wishing he would have grown up back then. Like it would, like if he was his age now back then, because now I just feel so bad for young ones that were that age when I was, in my 20s in the 2010s. I know that sounds kind of confusing, but anyway, because of COVID, because of just how bad it seems like society is getting nowadays, that optimism just kind of seems to be gone. And I think that's why this era of music gets really criticized, because it's just like this outlook on life is just lacking right now. It's not here. So when you hear like a Lumineer song come on, and it's all just kind of campy and happy about the world. When you hear like One Republic's kind of middle bracket of albums, like Counting Stars and so on and so forth, you get the eye roll. What's his name? Philip Phillips, Vance Joy, Edward Sharpe, and the Magnetic Zeros. Whatever. Like fill in whatever style band during that time period, and they fit that bill. And so those are my two main points of how this era came to be: the history of music overall and the time period of where this style of music came from. Are the lyrics in a lot of these songs campy, kind of corny? Absolutely yes. Is the style of music, and when I say that, maybe kind of like the technical skills of those songs kind of lacking? Yes, they are. And I think that's why they were purposefully made, was to be able to have people cover these songs pretty easily, and even cover them and put them on YouTube pretty quickly. Because, most of them just comprised of your four chords, maybe some very simple, guitar tabs, and that was it. You got the song. But the simplicity in it is what kind of drew people to this era of music. To this day, I personally don't listen to these songs very frequently, especially in comparison to 10 years ago. You rewind the clocks 10 years ago, I had all these songs on my iPhone blasting, ready to go. I know on long road trips I went on with friends, I almost guarantee you every other song, or one in every 5 songs or something, was a song fitting this description. But it was just that time. As I'm growing older more and more nowadays, I'm understanding when my parents would use that expression. They would just say, because my parents were huge into music, they still are. And they would say that, it was just a different time period. So when you listen to those songs back in the 60s and the 50s and so on and so forth, it's like their minds go back there. And I find mine doing that. Kind of to wrap this video up, like I said, this was the prime of my life, was when these songs came out. And while I definitely do agree that they are corny, they are not very good songs, I still love them. They still kind of make me remember my time periods of growing up, living alone for the first time, kind of meeting my first adult friends, forming them, and I love it. So you can hate on it, you can knock it all you want, but for those who grew up during this time period, and when I say grow up, I mean like those in their 20s back then, we tip our hat to this genre of music. I'll see y'all next week.